Hello. Okay, so today I want to talk a little bit about gaming, and specifically gaming technology, and a little bit of what goes on to it, because there's some cool things that are going out there in the gaming world right now. And I actually have a game that we're going to kind of look at as we're doing things. I've hoped I put it into a position where there's not really going to be any spoilers, but we're going to kind of mess around with the settings a little bit in it and take a look at like what's high end. And I'll be honest with you, probably over the next little bit, I'm going to break this stream probably at least once, maybe two or three times. So if things crash, doesn't mean the stream's ended. It's just that I have done enough poking at this between the streaming and the power of the high end gaming aspect of it that I will probably crash the streaming portion of this at least once or twice in the next little bit. So just stay on. I just got to change settings around and bring things back up if it happens. Um, but so gaming is a multi-billion-dollar industry, and there is so much to do with gaming. And more than likely, if you're watching this right now, the gaming tech thing interests you. Like there's so much that can be bought, paid for, so many things that you can get that belong in the gaming world, and it's what they sell. Quite honestly, when you go to the store, you're more likely to see something that's slapped with a gaming icon on it than you are anything else because gaming sells items. And despite what everyone wants to think, that super high end $5,000 machine is not the only way to do gaming. And when you watch a lot of these streamers and stuff like that, a lot of other YouTubers, they always talk about the super high end stuff. Uh, but realistically, most people live below that, and that's perfectly fine. That's an adequate gaming experience, and that's what a good gaming experience should be. So, um, some things to think about with gaming, and I'm going to talk about like a little bit of streaming with gaming here because I think that's becoming a big item that a lot of people are interested in, and just about everyone nowadays knows somebody who is doing some type of streaming in the gaming world. And I kind of want to talk a little bit of a difference between, um, like, you hear about like big name streamers and them doing gaming, and they're providing it to you on the platform. Uh, Very, very seldom are they actually playing at the capability their machine is capable of doing. I think that's like one thing that you have to get out of your mind to begin with. Very seldom is a streamer truly paying at 4K. There's very, very little ways to do like Twitch or YouTube streaming and be able to fully stream at that capability. Uh, there's some bottlenecks in there that you kind of have to think about. One of those bottlenecks is the upload quality of it, because you have to upload stream to YouTube, who then have to broadcast it with that capability. Twitch doesn't allow that. Or guess what? Yeah. Twitch doesn't necessarily do 4K. You might get very high quality, very high quality viewing when you're looking at it, but it doesn't actually do 4K. They actually downgrade the video. If you go to Twitch and you look at the streaming settings that they recommend, they put it closer to the 1080p marker, 720p. Like anybody who's doing a camera, like the camera that I'm using right now, this is a 4K camera. This can record at 4K, but because the window is so small, majority of the time, once you're in a game and you're watching a streamer and they have it on the bottom corner, you're only really getting like maybe a 420 out of that. So you're not even you're thousands of pixels less than what your camera is capable of doing. And that's the thing that most people forget about. You don't need to stream at that to be able to do that. And then the game quality. A lot of modern games, even at the lowest settings, still look good. Then when you look at a streamer, and they're playing this game and it looks absolutely fantastic, they are not running at the highest settings. Because guess what? The graphics cards can't handle the encoding and the game running at the same time. I was actually messing around with this a little bit earlier, and I'll play around with it a little bit during the stream, and I will bump the game that I will show here up to the max, and it's going to crash the stream. I have fairly good internet here at my house, so I that's not a concern. I am running a 3090, so the graphics card's not a concern. I am running a 3900 XT processor, so the processor's not a concern. Uh, but I know for a fact that when I bump it to the absolute max settings, stream at the absolute max settings, uh, it's gonna break. It's gonna break. Um, and I'll show that here in a little bit because streaming is not necessarily absolutely perfect. All right. So let's go take a look at a game, and we'll kind of talk about like gaming as we do this. Uh, hopefully by now you can notice the title of this video, so I am going to have a little bit of Cyberpunk up on here. I'm not going to delve into the story. I'm going to very much stick within a couple places that I know right now after playing off a little bit that I can kind of look at, and it's in the first like 5 minutes of the game. Also, could someone bypass the bottleneck by running a separate PC as the streaming hardware? Yes, you could to a point. And the streaming method that we're using right now with me, I'm doing this off of a single machine with relatively good specs on everything. If I were to do this and do a capture card over to another machine and then have that machine stream, you would have a higher quality overall, but it still comes down to both YouTube and Twitch aren't really going to allow you to stream at that quality. There really isn't always an option to stream at 4K. You'll stream closer to 2K in that aspect of things. The problem with that, to hit that high quality, really high quality video games with a high quality stream, is you're probably talking close to probably $9,000 between the two machines. Probably around $5,000 for your strong gaming machine. Probably right around that for that. And then you're gonna want something that's probably almost as powerful, especially in the graphic processor, because the GPU has to do what we call encoding when we do streaming. So the GPU on the one machine has to play the video game. On the other one, it has to do all the encoding. And the higher level of encoding, the higher the quality of the encoding, the more of the CPU processing we're going to take up to be able to do it. Or GPU processing we're going to take up to do it. But again, if you push that back down to 2K, that's why the really high quality ones that you watch, they're only really sitting at about 2K. They're not playing at the maxed out settings. It's just this is the way things are. So right now I have Cyberpunk set up on the lowest possible settings that this game has. Everything is off. Everything is off. Everything is set on low. You can't really get any lower on these settings. And this right here, with these settings, this should be able to be run off of any CPU that has a processing chip built into it. You should be able to play this game at that capabilities. And let's kind of take a look at what that would look like. So this is, oh, hello, sorry. So this is a brand new game, lowest possible settings. And the game itself is running at 60 frames per second. So more than likely, even your lowest end, and this was designed to run off a 1000 series Nvidia card at this level, you're still going to have a really good looking view. So for funsies, let's go to medium first. You get a little bit more crisper aspect of it, and this has to do we're adding in our shadows. And that's what most gamings do to give you that first level of increased graphics is we start adding shadows. Um, 15 years ago, 10 years ago, shadow tech in video games was considered that, oh, that's awesome. No game's ever going to use it. And that used to be the thought process. You used to hear this from gamers 10, 15 years ago, when you had these high quality games at the time. They introduced shadows into the games, and you start having little bits of shadows sitting behind your objects. And it was a nifty trick. It was one of those things that was like, oh my gosh, that's awesome. Gaming is never going to do this. But now, all right, let's see how. We're going to go ahead and turn ray tracing on. And we'll start seeing how badly. So ray tracing is the new is it really going to last mechanic. And there's a lot of gamers out there that are still within the mind frame that ray tracing isn't going to be a thing. Like, it's not going to last very long. I'm trying to reflect off this puddle here. Let's see if I can go down. All right. So all ray tracing is advanced math. And despite what everybody thinks, it has absolutely nothing to do with RTX. That's just a nifty ploy by Nvidia, by the way, to make you buy a card because they make you think you have ray tracing capability. But about 70% of 2000 series Nvidia cards weren't even capable of doing ray tracing. So this is ray tracing on a medium settings. We actually have a little bit of coming off there. Let's go ahead and turn that off again. Okay. Actually, they've done so well with that aspect of it. Just the regular non-ray tracing, you can still see most of the shadows in the... Let's go someplace a little bit better. All right. There we go. Let's look at reflection. Yeah, look at the reflection. There's the sky. Let's go turn that back on. Let's do contact shadows and ray tracing now. And let's turn on some lights. We're getting a little bit better image off of it. Let's go look at our guy over here again. So we add a little bit more light to it, and we're getting a little bit more colors coming across there, and a little bit easier to see all those different colors. So this is what ray tracing does. Let's bump that all the way up now. Let's turn on all the reflections and all the capabilities of ray tracing. This is probably one of the first ones out there, and it's already breaking the stream. I just saw the encoder just yell at me. All right. Now look at that reflection. You can fully see the person's body in the water. Let's go back over here. Look at that. Not only can you see the sky, but now I can see a direct reflection of everything on the other side. All right. And as promised, the video is probably stuttering extremely bad now. Okay. I'm going to let the I'm letting the encoder cool down for a second. The graphics card definitely hit its max capability there, because as it was trying to do the ray tracing at the same time as playing the game and then encoding for the stream, uh, the it hit its max. And this is, as I said, the higher level of a card that you can possibly get for the gaming aspect of it, and it can't handle doing both. Uh, so this is kind of like the limits of where a 3090 lives at. Uh, oh, I am jumping all over the place. I love it. Uh, all right. So let's go ahead and end that. Then I can just chat for a little while. Okay. Uh, hopefully the jumping in my video will go back to the place here in a little bit. I might have to stop OBS and come back. Okay, give me a second. All right. Hopefully that brought it back. So, you hit a limit there to what streaming capabilities could do. It was not liking the fact of having uh, ray tracing turned on, and that's an aspect of ray tracing when you're looking at this, because you're using the upper functionality of your graphics card, and you get to a point where even the highest powered graphics card isn't able to do multitasking in that way. So it's not necessarily the multitasking of the CPU anymore. My CPU is only at 1% utilization during that entire process. But the graphics card hit a limit on what it's capable of doing. So that's part of the idea of gaming here. When you're gaming, you really should be having it set up to disable other applications. When you're doing streaming and gaming, you're probably not going to be wanting to run it at the max possible settings, unless you are running a dual system with another system being able to do the full encoding on another device. But that's kind of the premise here. So when it comes to other gaming features, other gaming tech, CD Projekt Red and several of the other ones out there, now they have gone out of their way to build their own engines that go with this. So they're not just they're not using Epics, and Epic is considered one of the biggest gaming engine developers that are out there. Fortnite. If you've heard of Fortnite, you probably have heard of Epic. And Epic has been around for a very, very long time. They are not a new company. So they are one of the main gaming engine publishers. CD Projekt Red has developed their own. Bethesda has their own mostly horrible gaming engine, but it still works. But all the big developers tend to do their own. EA has their Frostbite Engine that is normally used in most of the EA games. You probably noticed it recently on the Star Wars Battlefront series, and it's another good one. It does what it does. But you're going to see more games coming out with that ray trace mechanic. Sadly, that means that you're probably not going to see a lot of streamers actually stream with that ray tracing capability on. Now, YouTubers who do Let's Play videos are going to be a little bit different, because you can record that 4K capability on your local machine or to a secondary machine, a secondary computer. The same way you would do with your Xbox and your PlayStation. You go into a game capture device, and that will capture it, drop it off into another location. So you're going to see that. You're going to see a lot of Let's Play videos. They're going to upload 4K videos, and those 4K videos will actually be 4K gaming ones. Streamers, on the other hand, just aren't going to hit that capability. Uh, Again, unless they are seriously spending $9,000 to $10,000 on their setups, um, and that's actually starting to go down. A lot of the really big streamers aren't necessarily doing that anymore. They're going for single systems, or when they play games like this, they're going to strictly do it off of the Xbox or PlayStation, because then they can capture it at a lower rate and be able to stream it upwards at a 720. Um, so that's another aspect of it. So, um, AMD has just released a whole bunch of new graphics cards, and their 6000 series just came out. AMD cards can do ray tracing, and they also just released a brand new driver today. The thing is that we all have to keep in reminder when we look at AMD graphics card versus the Nvidia graphics card is Nvidia's are now at the second generation of a technology, while AMD is going to be at the first generation of their technology. And this is one of those weird occurrences where it's not that it's better, it's not that it's worse, it's that they've had more times to condense the process and basically remove the errors. So Nvidia is still going to be the higher performer in the long run in that aspect until Nvidia gets their 7,000 series cards out. So we're still looking probably 18 months to a year. But that's only at the high end of performance level when it comes to gaming. If we drop that back down to what is more realistic, 3070s, their what is it? Their 6100 AMD card, perfectly viable. Sorry, perfectly viable, good cards, and the hardware is going to work. Right. So, what other type of gaming tech do we have to be aware of? And uh, mouse, keyboard, and controller are gaming technologies that we have to be aware of. Again, this is one of the ones where they're selling you the idea that a $200 object is significantly better than a $20 object. And in some ways that's true. In other ways, that's not 100% accurate. Uh, this is the Cyberpunk edition, Razer Viper. This is probably what's categorized as one of the best mice that is out there for first-person shooters, mainly because it's wafer. It's very, 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 very light. Probably one of the lightest mouses that you're ever going to truly see on the market nowadays. It's also customizable because you can pull all the pieces off of here with a little bit of work and paint your own one. This one's not. This one's a licensed one. Okay. Does this mouse have a big difference than say a $30 mouse? Uh, not a whole lot. There's some quality aspects that are in this one that might not be in a $30 mouse. This one is completely wireless, so that in and of itself means that there's a lot of people who will instantly discredit a wireless mouse when it comes to gaming technologies. You will hear and like if you ever watch tournaments, Dota tournaments, or anything else that's like that, you'll never see anybody use a wireless mouse for the most part. It is because there is this inherent idea of input lag. I love the Trinities. They're good ones too. But there's an inherent idea that there's input lag from a wireless mouse. So, here's the thing about that. Really, unless you are doing true competitive, that input lag is in the nanoseconds. And really, for most gamers, for most individuals who are playing, even if you're playing a little bit more on the competitive side in any of the Call of Duties or any other shooter out there, we're talking nanoseconds. So it's really not going to affect the average player, average streamer, average gamer, the people who are just out there to have fun. Yes, if you're sitting on that 10% of that market who is in it for money, and you're in a competition, then yes, that nanoseconds. But at that point in time, you're also good. I mean, I hate to say it point blank like that, but that is a thing. You're probably already at that point in time where you're classified as good in that game, and again, that nanoseconds probably doesn't matter that much anymore. Um, keyboards. Keyboards are another one that are very, very interesting when it comes to the gaming world. Um, what I have here, this is a drop alt, uh, extremely thin, extremely lightweight, uh, completely and totally customizable keyboard. So this is not what you would normally find on a gamer's desk, especially the ones, especially if someone is going down like the hardcore route, going after Razers and stuff like that. Um, what is interesting about keyboards is it is all about how the key is pressed. So you probably will hear it's a little bit lighter press for a gaming style keyboard that is completely customizable. So on the higher end keyboards, you're probably going to have something that has a little bit more of a click sound. Uh, and these ones here are very, very light presses. So it has that tactile feel. So I know when when the key is actually pressed. Uh, the other thing about this one, if I can put it in the right place here, is that a keyboard like this is completely USB-C capable, which means that I have less cable on my desk than uh, most people are going to have. I can also daisy chain off my keyboard. And I know there's a lot of keyboards out there that have that capability, but this has USB-C daisy chain capabilities, meaning I can chain a whole nother keyboard to this one or a whole nother mouse. And send this all directly to the monitor. That is another aspect of the gaming side of things. Um, when you have your gaming monitor in front of you, we're gonna toss those quotes around the word gaming because we're selling a thought process there. We're selling a theory at that point in time. Um, guess what I can do nowadays because of this idea of gaming and our high techness. I can connect all my peripherals directly to my monitor, and then my monitor through HDMI or DisplayPort carries that to the computer instead. Now, this is another one of those ones that some gamers, especially if you're sitting on that higher end, like I want to be competitive and everything in my life is competitive with gaming, you're probably not going to do because again, there is nanoseconds, nanoseconds difference. Uh, Something that more than likely you're never truly going to see the difference of. And if you're at that point in time where you're that high up and that capable of noticing the nanoseconds, your skill level is probably already taking over that nanoseconds difference. Um, but nowadays, good gaming setups for clean gating setups, you don't take it back to the computer. You can buy shorter cables, things that are within 2 or 3 feet, and be able to come up underneath your monitor and directly connect it. Um, so gaming monitors go into this equation. Um, I play off of a ultra wide, so I run a 3440 by 1440 monitor, meaning that it is longer and shorter. Um, meaning that I'm actually running at about 2K capability, so I will never get 4K gaming out of this monitor unless I go to another higher quality one, and there's only a couple that are higher. Um, ultra wide is kind of a weird world. You either are 2K or you spend a shit ton more and you are 4K, and by that I mean $3, $4, $5,000 to get to that 4K ultra wide. It is not really that worth it from everything. Okay, but gaming monitors. So they're going to toss that gaming aspect into technology. What was interesting when I had Cyberpunk up and running, and I killed it because it was causing an issue. The stream was kind of failing, so I'm gonna bring it back up here really quickly. What I didn't notice when I was going through it originally is there was no setting change for refresh rate for the game, which is kind of interesting. So refresh rate, how often is the game refreshing its textures versus how what the monitor is capable of doing? You want them to match when it comes to gaming. So if you have a game that's can be able to do 120 plus, and you have a monitor that can do 120 plus, you want them to match. But if you have a game that can only do 60, that's fine. But if you have a game that can do 120, but it can go down, and your monitor can only do 60, you really want to shrink that down to 60 and 60. That way, you have a better equal amount. Here, I want to show. I thought this was hilarious when I turned this game on for the first time. Where's my desktop? Okay. CD Projekt Red is working on their own game interface. They are, instead of going directly into the game, you get your own little interface that has to click play from. That's a little annoying. Or at least it is to me. Okay. I'm going to pop this open, and then we will take a quick look, see if we can mess around with some more settings of this thing. If anybody asked, I have no idea how. I'm literally 2.5 minutes into this game. I found a door, I walked out of it, and I sat down and I waited for you all. This is gonna be my weekend. Once I'm done streaming today, I'm gonna put this on, restart the game, rebuild the character, and then get lost for the next 72 hours. Okay. All right, so let's pop back into that sound. Let's go back to graphics. Okay, we're still sitting at medium. We'll see if we can mess around with refresh rate really quickly. And they might not even have refresh rate as an option. And they don't. Okay, that's fine. All right, so for my gaming nerds out there, Nvidia Dlss. If you haven't heard about it, it's a kind of cool way of doing resolution scaling. And you're going to see more games do this. Right now, there's maybe about a dozen games total out there of everything that came out in the past couple of years with DLSS. Is not necessarily something that everyone's going to be using, because you still need a capable one. And the 2000 series cards were garbage at it. So I'm going to crouch down and take a look at those reflections again. Okay. Not bad. If you look up into the sky, it looks like a pretty solid blue. All right. Let's go turn on DLSS. We'll put it on auto. And now let's take a look at the same things. So not that much difference. Sorry, dude. I didn't mean to walk that close to you. The reflections are a little bit better than they were before. We're getting a little bit better light. And all we did was turn on DLSS. So this technology is really nice. It allows for a better quality, higher resolution game without using quite as much resources. And this has been an idea in the gaming world for a couple of years. And we've seen some aspects of this for a little while. And it's really been around in 2018, 2019. Borderlands 3 had a little bit of this. where it could do this auto resolution aspect and be able to kind of fix the resolution on things uh, when you look at stuff. So let's turn it back off. So things were probably just a little bit crisper. But I have all the settings set on medium, so we're not going to get a super change in that. But yeah, see how reflections are just a little bit better with it on. When gaming companies build games, uh, it's a multi-year process for every game that's out there. Historically, I think CD Projekt Red first announced this game 7 years ago. I'm pretty sure if Fujin was watching this, she would yell at me and tell me exactly how much time. But most games live within a 3-year development cycle. So any game that's coming out in 2020 originally probably started work back in 2017 time frame. 1 year of base ramp up, 1 year of full, then 1 year of kind of smoothing everything out. That's why when you see organizations that put out games every single year, was a point to make fun of Call of Duty here for a second. So Call of Duty, they historically normally have one game coming out every single year. 8 years. Okay, I was close. Okay, 8 years. But you have games like that that come out every year. So big companies like that, they will have multiple teams running at the same time. CD Projekt Red in smaller studios, and CD Projekt Red is actually a small studio. You only have one game in development at a time, and you can't start developing the next one until all work on this one is done. Uh, Other studios that are kind of like that, Bethesda. Uh, Now, Bethesda themselves only really produce Fallout and Elder Scrolls, and do not mistake that for Elder Scrolls Online. That is actually not done by main body Bethesda. That's a secondary company. And then you're gonna look at, okay, what about Doom? Doom is a subsidiary of the company Bethesda, not the gaming studio Bethesda. So Bethesda, a multi-billion-dollar one, only does 2 games a year. I mean, 2 games over a life cycle, and their development time is normally about 4 to 8 years. And right now they're in development for a new third IP. So what that means for gamers is that Fallout 4 was the last main title. So instead of it being a Elder Scrolls title, 4-year window for that, there'll be a 4-year window for their new Sky game, Starfield. Then it'll be 4 years for Elder Scrolls 6, and then 4 years for Fallout 5, which is right on track. That is probably as pretty close as we're going to get here right now. So you're probably looking at least from this year, 2026 is probably Elder Scrolls 6. 2030 roughly would potentially be Fallout 5. And that's a smaller studios. That's how a smaller studio is able to do stuff. Then you kind of go look at like the Halo series, Halo Infinite development hell. Again, where now you're sitting at, yeah, there we go. Let me make sure I have the right one. Now you're sitting there, and it's probably going to be 2 years before development finishes on it to be able to release it. But here's an interesting thing when it comes to that. Does anyone notice the past couple of weeks, all of a sudden you're getting ads for multiplayer for the new Halo game? Yeah, unless you work at Valve, then there's no such thing as a current game. I'll actually touch on that here in a second too. But marketing doesn't match up to when a game comes out. And they've announced today that the earliest that the next Halo game is coming out is fall of next year, so fall of 2021. But they started marketing because some of that marketing was already set in place to run uh, when the Xbox Series X got released. So, yeah, that's weird. Okay. What about Valve? Valve's an interesting company, right? What does Valve produce nowadays? Uh, well, they have like one game in the past like couple years. They did a VR game. Uh, Valve is a very interesting gaming company, and we talk about gaming technology. They've spent a lot of money developing a better at-home VR, and they've done it. So they've actually created one of the probably the best at-home VR system that you can purchase right now. Um, Valve historically was another gaming company. They were on a fairly good schedule, uh, and then Steam happened, uh, and that kind of broke up all their scheduling. So instead of following this 2 year, 3 year cycle, and there's actually quite a few videos of their people talking about this. Half Life is Valve's biggest game. It just is. Portal's probably their second biggest game. Half Life is number one. Uh, there was many Half-Life games that for Half-Life 3 that went into development over the past 15 years, and none of them went past that initial first year. They did the initial asset talks, got things up. They started the ramp up, and then they had to stop because of Steam. Uh, and most people who look at Valve nowadays look at that. Valve is more of an ecosystem. They deal with Steam. They sell access to video games, uh, which is an interesting issue. Uh, what kind of leads us into another conversation, which is like, where does this all go to next? Um, so is PC gaming and desktop gaming kind of uh, like well that what we see today in this formula of every 4 years, 3 to 4 years, they put out a new gaming console. New graphics cards come out on about every 3 to 4 year cycle. Uh, Xbox Series X's. When will Xbox Series X's become Xbox Series XX or Xbox Series whatever's? Uh, at what point is are we gonna stop seeing that and eventually get to like that uniformed single console item that does it all? Uh, well, quite honestly, we're probably a lot closer to that solution, and some people in chat here might not like what I'm about to say, uh, but it realistically is probably going to be things like Stadia, Xbox Game Pass, GeForce Now, um, Amazon Luna. Um, those are all the items that are probably going to end up taking the place of buying an Xbox or a PlayStation. Um, it, the trend has been there, and there's a really good comment that needs to be made here about if you if you were to grow up on like Stadia, Xbox Game Pass, where you can stream it to your phone, Amazon Luna, any one of these games as a service in the cloud aspect, and then I was to say, hey, the next evolution is an Xbox Series X or a PlayStation 5, where instead of having that instant on, instant gratification, I'm saying, hey, guess what? You have to run updates, you have to download. Uh, there's going to be a difference of how we view things. Um, Now, is it for everybody who's a gamer right now? No. But the next set of generations, this is going to be a bigger topic. There's billions of dollars being spent into this, and realistically, we're probably going to see more of this coming up. Uh, Microsoft is eventually probably going to call it on their Xbox. Uh, there probably is going to be a period of time in the future where Xbox won't be anything else besides a PC. You're just going to get an Xbox branded PC because as of right now, Microsoft, every game that Microsoft produces underneath their label is already available to be played on PC. And guess what? At the same time, they're automatically including into the Xbox Game Pass, which means you can, for $14 a month, you can play every single launch title that Xbox is coming out with, and a whole bunch of other ones that are possible. Oh, my camera is acting weird. I'm splitting. Let me fix that. Uh, and that's gonna be a thing in the future. Um, whether it's in the next 5, whether it's the next generation, whether it's 2 generations from now, uh, it's gonna be a thing, and just be prepared for it. Um, there we go. My stream's getting it fixed. So other gaming techs that we have to be aware of that are kind of cool little one-offs uh, is gaming pads. So recently I changed out from one that I was previously using. I was using a Razer Tarantula. Don't quote me on names because Ryan can't speak half the time. And I recently moved to a very, very small, simple Numpad. Uh, and this is another one of those gaming tech items. Um, this originally started out as a simple 10 key. Um, this one here is 19 key because of the spacebar. But this idea was you buy a little 10 key aspect for smaller keyboards like the one I showed you a little bit ago. And gamers have really jumped onto this idea, especially if you're still using keyboard and mouse, because you're able to pull this away from the keyboard a little bit. You get a little bit more, a little bit better spacing between your hands. Be able to lean back a little bit better because you can move these farther than you can your keyboard. Uh, so yes, you're seeing a lot more of gamers move in this direction than using just their keyboard. Um, these are a dime a dozen, to be really honest with you. Any 10 key replacement item will act as that capability because you can program all the keys on it. This one here is about a $40 model. Um, again, it's something that I can pull all the keys off and customize it. I can also customize all of the RGB on it. I can also customize all the keycaps on it. And this one has that louder click sound. And that louder click sound is something that most gamers like to hear. We like to hear that sound because that's our audible knowledge to our brain saying, "Hey, guess what? Uh, it's working. You actually pressed the key." So something interesting has been happening in the gaming world, and you can actually look at the stats if you bring up Steam and be able to see this. Uh, the controller, where it used to only be probably about 10% of Steam games being played on the controller, this has actually moved up significantly. And the controller is now sitting at, I think, closer to like 30% or something like that. Let's see if I can find the community settings for that on Steam. Because the stats on Steam are very interesting. Steam stats. Let's go. Can I just choose a window? Okay, Steam. Okay, Steam, you're not going to show up. Okay, do I have to choose a different Steam? Okay, Steam stats. You don't want to show up today. That's fine. That is fine. Steam stats. The power of the computer. If you don't know how to maneuver yourself around, then guess what? Before I bring that there, let's go that. Let's open up incognito. Because nobody wants to see what I have on my computer. Now let's go browser. Okay. Steam stats. Let's see if we can get the hardware and software survey. There we go. Getting used to the controller. Playing Xbox. So interesting thing has happened over the past couple of years. Oh, I find it interesting. I find a lot of things interesting. I'm just that type of person. So most AAA games, uh, if a game is a certain level of a game, then if it's being developed by Microsoft, if any money from Microsoft being spent on it, any money from PlayStation is being spent on it, or Sony, then the game is a console game first, a PC game second. So you're seeing this with a lot of modern titles where uh, the console, I mean the controller, it's designed for a controller, it's meant to be used on a controller, and then they build in PC support to the game afterwards. All right. So this listing here shows what, as of November 2020, what the most current version of everything out there is. And for the most part, Windows 10 makes total sense. 16 gigs of RAM. I think I've talked about this before. Really, 16 gigs is the perfect amount of RAM. You're not really going to use too much more for that if you're just doing gaming. But if you're doing more than gaming, then you might want more. 4 CPUs is going to be the average. So here's an interesting one. Currently, the most common card on Steam is a GTX 1060. So a 1000 series, the GTX card has kind of the dominancy right now, 10%. Let's take a look here and find the closest AMD card. There we go. So the closest AMD card, the RX 580, sitting at 2% of the market. Let's go find our closest 3000 series card. Basically, I'm looking for how far up are brand new graphics cards that just got released this quarter. And I'm going to bet they are very low. Actually, I don't even know if they're on there. Okay. And RTX 3080, which is probably going to be the card that most gamers aim to get if you're going to jump up to the 3000 generation. It has a market share of 0.22 on the gaming side of things. That's about right. That is about right. They are so hard to get right now. You're not going to see a massive amount of people with a 3000 series card for a couple years, to be realistic. 3070 doesn't even show up, and neither does the 3090. So meaning that anybody with a 3090 is probably sitting at less than a 0.15 percentile of Steam utilization. There we go. Words hard. All right. And here's the other one I always like to take a look at. Currently, Oh, that's interesting. So most gamers, 67% of the market share game on a 1920 by 1080 display. So you're actually sitting at the standard HD, uh, that 1080 aspect. You're not even so like the power of a 3080, power of a 3090, or even the AMD series. Uh, you're probably not going to see the full power of that. It's just not going to. Uh, you're not going to see gigantic benefits from it because your monitor and display ratio is only going to be capable of so much. Interesting though, anybody who's doing multi-monitor is doing 3840 by 1080. Yeah, interesting trend. So all that means is that the majority of gamers out there uh, are never going to be at that super high end. Again, going back to that, like the concept and idea of a $5,000 computer being the must have item for gaming is kind of bull. It's not appropriate. It's not what everybody should be looking for. Uh, and realistically, it's probably not even something that most people should even be trying to get. Because you can build a complete system for significantly less. Um, yeah. Let's take a look at. Let's see here. For CPU, for physical CPUs, 44%, 626. This has a lot to do with Intel when it comes to CPU aspect of it. Most Intels are only 4 core, um, so it does take up market share. They don't actually tell the difference between AMD. Sadness. Unless it's over here. Mac PC number of CPUs per customer, computer, PC, blah, 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 PC processor, VR headsets, uh, Mac. Sorry, I find this absolutely hilarious. Mac has its own category nowadays. Let's see what our utilization for Mac is. 3.7%. 3.7% of the people who play video games off of Steam play on Mac. And it will be nice to round that to 1% play on Linux. So 95%, 96% of gamers are Windows gamers. So this also goes into that tech idea. Um, you build things for where your audience is at. Um, there's a reason why certain games do better on console than they do on PC. Like Halo. Halo's a good example here. So Halo originally, way back when, if we take a look at it, yes, it was an Xbox released item, but it did also come out not soon afterwards on PC. This is a trend that's coming back now, many years later. Uh, you build it on World Council, then you port it over there. Sony is doing this right now, where they're taking their AAA titles that do extraordinarily well and port them to PC for the PC players because they know they can make another $100 million if it sells well. All right. But there are certain type of styles of games that will do better on console, and people know that. So you market and you build for the console first, and then backwards. But at the same time, there is whole categories of games that you will only find on computer. And a lot of that has to do with a little bit more of the customization and the content. Uh, when you publish games for Xbox and PlayStation, you have to hit their requirements for content, which means level appropriateness and everything else. It is easier to be a little bit more open-ended on your content when you develop for PC, and there is significantly more tools available for you to download right now today for free to develop for the PC. Um, Realistically, you could go ahead download a simple thing like RPG Maker, which I think costs about like $50 to $100 depending on what version you get, and you could build yourself a little pixelated RPG game. Uh, Probably take you 300-400 hours to do. Bundle it all up, put a good title on it, put some music, get some people, some friends of yours to go voice act for it, uh, get it approved for Steam and out there on and selling probably within like 6 months. Versus if you were to try to do something like that on PlayStation and Xbox, there isn't really that capability. You are seeing more indie games come up on the Xbox platform, a little bit on the PlayStation, but they do not market towards them. Um, the PlayStation and Xbox, those aren't headlining those areas. They're footnotes. Uh, yeah. So PC is always going to be a little bit better place for those more uh, the quality of game, I guess I should say. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Okay. What else? What else we want to talk about? I myself will not be streaming Cyberpunk because I fully plan to play with uh, the music that is copyrighted. Uh, so sorry, I will not be doing that unless for some reason I get a lot of people ask me to do so, which I highly doubt there will be. Um, on that note, because I try to keep these to about an hour long, uh, that's all I really have to talk about with gaming tech. I hope everybody liked my TED talk. Um, Gaming is ever evolving. Uh, I bring up Cyberpunk right now. Wow, my camera is all over the place. um, I bring up Cyberpunk as one of the games to talk about because it's probably going to be considered the the current top of the line PC, Xbox, PlayStation game when it comes to the ray tracing capabilities. Uh, and probably is going to be a lot of games that are going to come out in the next year or two are going to be directly compared to Cyberpunk in that category. Whether it's a good game, whether it's a bad game, whether it is the masterpiece that everybody wants it to be, um, we'll find out. But it will stay a conversation piece for probably the next 2 years because it's really going to be one of the very first PC titles that are fully going to go into with all the stuff involved into it. PS5s and Xbox have ray tracing capabilities. Uh, Demon Souls, this looks absolutely gorgeous, ray traced. Still waiting for it to get a PS5 for me and Vujin. Uh, we played Assassin's Creed on both PC and on Xbox, and they look indistinguishable. You really can't tell the difference um, from our big screen television to the PC. Quality wise, there wasn't hardly any difference, and there was no ray tracing in that game with the overall quality of it. So gaming systems are coming pretty much the same. Yeah. Oh yeah, you can use a mouse and keyboard on PCs nowadays. I mean, on Xboxes and PlayStations. All right. My camera is doing a weird floating thing. I don't know about you, but it's aggravating me. But that's probably the tech side of me trying to figure out why it's doing that. Probably if I didn't mess with it, it'd probably split the screen in half in the next hour. All right. I think I'll call it there. Everyone go have a good night. Go have happy holidays. I probably won't do another one until January, so I can go spend time, and I'll be working on a couple of videos that I'm going to try to come up during the holiday break.